Inside the Birds is back. What's up, everybody? It's Geoff, Mosher, and Adam Caplan for another Inside the Birds presented by our friends at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City, the exclusive Jersey Shore resort of Inside the Birds. We are going to start a really good, fun, entertaining, but more so insightful two-part series here, two-part podcast series. This is part one. Adam and I are going to talk about the couple of things that have our biggest concern about the Philadelphia Eagles going into 2024. And just so that everybody doesn't accuse us of being Negadelphians, we want to be fair. In our next podcast, we are going to talk about the things that stick out to us that we're most encouraged by going into 2024. And we're not going to be obvious, folks. I mean, we don't do that here on this podcast. We're not going to say, hey, Lane Johnson's the right tackle. We're really encouraged by that. We're going to really go inside this team, ins and outs, and even with our concerns. It's not just going to be about depth at this stuff we've talked about. It's going to be some stuff that Adam and I have been discussing quite in depth for quite a while. So, Adam, I look forward to this. It's new content. It's different. We didn't do this last year. I'm excited about it.
Yeah, it's partially from what we learned, from what we've heard through OTAs, but it's stuff that it's just, I was talking to someone from another team who kept mentioning Fletcher Cox to me. He goes, "You have no idea how much Philly's going to miss Fletcher Cox." And I said, "Well, why?" He goes, "Because we just don't have guys like this on the interior who could rush like he did." And it's hard. Like, I know Jalen Carter obviously was off to a great start, faded late, but the thing that Fletch did, and why he'll get serious Hall of Fame consideration, we'll get into him, when we the course of the show, but it's hard to find consistent interior pass rushers. It's really hard. And I was talking to this guy about it earlier this week, and that kind of spurred my idea of to take a look at what some of the things that are on the surface may not be obvious, but even if it is, we're going to go deeper than stuff. We kind of expand it a little more because we've learned it, because Geoff and I talked to certain people about the Eagles roster. We're kind of cross-checking our information. So, and then plus by this, it also combines what's out there in free agency, because that when clubs look to sign players for training camp, by the time you get there in late July, it's been picked over. There are certain players out there, but more or less you go to camp with what you have.
100%. Yeah, no, it's gonna be good to really look inside this team and give you our concerns, give you the things that we're encouraged about. And again, a lot of that is based on some conversations we've had with people who know this team inside and out and may share a similar vision as we do. As far as our content, it is July. People call this the doldrums or the dead time. But if you were on InsideTheBirds.com, you would not think so. Andrew DeCecco continuing to do a great job pumping out some stories. Wrote a really nice story on Britton Covey, who had a cousin about 10 years ago who died of suicide. And Britton is a part of the family's foundation to raise awareness about mental health. And he's got a golf charity tournament coming up to raise money for the Covey Foundation. And really the foundation that supports mental health that Andrew wrote about, that the Covey family is involved with, it's through equestrian training, Adam. It's really interesting. I don't know. I think that someone in the family had written a book. Well, the cousin, whose name is Rachel, she committed suicide. She had an affinity for horses. And then Stephen Covey wrote a book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
It's his grandfather, I think.
Yes, the grandfather. I believe you're correct about that. So the story is really good. It goes very in depth into what Britain's been doing this offseason, and I just really liked it. And I thought Andrew did a really nice job encapsulating everything that the Britain Covey's going through right now this offseason, while also trying to make sure he's in great competition to compete for a spot. And obviously, Andrew's also been writing about strengths and weaknesses on the team. He did a really good inside look at the cornerback situation and also the wide receiver situation. So continue to check out InsideTheBirds.com for great content from Andrew DeCecco. And we'll have more content, of course, as the days and go by here in June and July. And then, Adam, we do have some news we can get to. Well, we have the announcement of training camp, which is going to start on July 23rd. Now, the only thing that was weird that really jumped out at me Adam, about that? It's not the week in July that it's starting because it usually typically starts third or fourth week of July, but it starts on a Tuesday. I don't know how they came up with
Well,
Tuesday.
they report then. Yeah, they report on a Tuesday. They
That's what I'm
report on
saying. They report on a
right.
Tuesday, and then what? First practice on a Wednesday.
Right. No, Gamma, this is coming the last 10 years. They do like next to nothing the first 5 days.
Right. Ramp up.
It's conditioning. Called the ramp up period. It's something that the NFLPA and the NFL, by the way, talking to their health and safety people, that because they notice the injuries drop. The more you ramp up, the better you are physically. Because if you haven't been doing anything for 2 months, unless working on your own, and then you just decide to go crazy the first day. Like you and I know this. Like when Andy Reid was one of the few head coaches who would have the guys hit. And it wasn't always on the first day, but the first day of training camp would be pretty intense. Not anymore. It's so light.
Right.
Heck, what was the practice last year? I think
So
they
this
had
is,
one.
I
Yeah.
don't remember last year. I
Okay.
just, what you mentioned about Reed really sticks out. If people remember what Lehigh was like, the first 3 days of training camp was just rookies and
Oh yeah.
selected
Right.
veterans, they would
Right.
call it, like a newcomer or a quarterback, right? On the third day of rookie camp would be the same day that the veterans were expected to report. So
Mhm.
they would report that day, usually a Thursday or Friday. Then there would be a conditioning test the next day. Then they would have a practice that day. Maybe okay, it's like you're one, like, all right. And then the very next day, pads out, hitting, bam. Like it was that fast. And then Adam, the next day after the first contact practice, you'd see like 7 guys the next morning working with Rick Brookholder, right? Because they're all banged up already. They got a hot
Soft
thigh or a
tissue.
hamstring or a
Yeah, soft
bicep.
tissue.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
crazy.
And that's
Yeah.
why, as we get into that, that's why started probably the 11 CBA, which was very contentious. And this is when the players wanted less practice time in the offseason. And they got it. Owners, as we've said many times over the years, they were happy to do that. If that's what you wanted to give back, sure. We're fine with that as long as it doesn't cost us money. But coaches hated it. Front offices didn't like it. But anyway,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So the Eagles, by the way, everyone reports that day. Rookies and veterans. Now, like the Packers do what you were talking about. They've got rookies and the veterans, selected veterans coming back from injury. You have to have quarterbacks with the rookies, by the way. It's the
Of course.
quarterbacks with the rookies because someone's got to throw to them.
That's why they make all that money.
Right. And then the veterans come in the Packers 4 days later. But yeah, it's look, it's no, obviously many years. It's not been at Lehigh. It's back in Novacare, almost every team, about well over 20, probably about 24 teams practice at their facility or within like 10 minutes. Then you've got, this is interesting this year in Los Angeles. It's up from 3 teams. We're going to have 5 teams. The Raiders are going to practice where the Chargers used to practice in Costa Mesa. The
Mm-hmm.
Chargers have their own complex. For those of you in California, they're calling it the what do they call it? The Bolt. The Bolt is what they're calling it in El Segundo, right near the LAX. And the Rams are moving from Cal Irvine,
Right.
and the Rams are moving to Loyola and Marymount. So yeah, and then it's really weird. And then the Saints are going to Cal Irvine, where the Rams used to be. So it's the Saints because they're opening this incredible cafeteria apparently, and it's not going to be ready by the summer, so they can't.
So
They
we have to
can't
go all
have.
the way out to California.
It's yeah. Apparently, it's like a big deal. Like it's so much construction, so they can't have it. Hey,
Right.
I'm loving it. Now I don't have to go to Metairie, Louisiana, and I don't have to go to Las Vegas. So now I'm going to see 5 teams in LA, and the Cowboys, by the way, are in Oxnard. For some reason, I'm curious about this. They're going the longest they've ever done in Oxnard. They're going to the 22nd of August, which is kind of weird to be out in
Wow.
California and Oxnard. So
Yeah,
anyway.
that is a long time. Have you ever been to El Segundo?
I have, yes. They're actually pretty good. I know it sounds funny if you watch. Those of us who are old enough to remember on Sanford and Son, Red Fox who played Fred Sanford. We
Mm.
used to talk about El Segundo all the time being like not a great place, but it's fine to me. I'm fine with El Segundo.
Never left your wallet there?
No, no, wait. What is that story about?
No,
What?
it's a song. Left my wallet in El Segundo.
Oh,
Tribe
oh,
Called
okay. I didn't
Quest.
know that. Oh, is that right? I didn't know that. Okay,
Yeah,
who
yeah,
sings
yeah.
that?
I,
You
I
know?
wasn't. It's okay. I was dropping a little hip hop on. I wasn't sure if it,
Oh, it's a hip hop. See, I didn't know that.
yeah, a
Okay.
Tribe Called Quest song.
Okay.
Real old, like maybe early '90s, late '80s.
By
But
the way, there's some great restaurants in there I've been to El Segundo, so I
I've
don't
always
know.
been fascinated from the song. I've never been to. I've really not spent a whole lot of time in that LA area. I've always been
Okay.
more in San Diego or San Francisco. So,
I
all right,
love I love PH1. That's all I can tell you. Pacific
there,
Coast Highway.
Pacific Highway. I would like to drive that someday.
Love it.
Just like all along the cliffs and looking at the beach. I'm a beach
Exactly what I'm
guy.
talking about. It's unbelievable. And then couple of my favorite restaurants are right at the start of the PCH,
Nice.
Newport Beach. Anyway,
All right, let's get into this podcast. Talk about our key concerns for the Eagles coming out of OTAs, going into training camp, and then the season. Before we do that, we're going to pause real quick for a word from our friends at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
All right, we put our heads together. We came up with some things that we've similarly felt about this team that we need to discuss as major concerns. And the first one is an interesting one because I was actually asked this question by Mike Gill, our partners at 97.3 ESPN in South Jersey. Mike Gill, a great host, afternoon drive host. He said to me in one of our Football at 4 interviews, what will be more impactful for this team? Or in like a worse way, what's going to be harder to overcome? The loss of Jason Kelce or the loss of Fletcher Cox? And boy, that's a tough question because I mean, you're like you mentioned, Adam. You're talking about potentially two definitely one, and maybe two Hall of Famers. But the bottom line is not just that, but two mainstays for so long who had so much talent, but also influence in the locker room, in their position room. And I ultimately settled, and this will get into a concern on Jason Kelce being tougher to overcome because at least at defensive tackle, you have a talent in Jalen Carter who should be talent for talent right up there. Now he's got a long way to go. He's got to keep his head straight. He's got to prove a whole lot. But I can't say that I expect Cam Jurgens to be Jason Kelce even in his best moments. But I think Jalen Carter has the kind of talent where he could. But it's equally concerning that both of these two guys are no longer with the playing for the organization.
all right, let's start with Fletcher Cox.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. This is good inside football stuff. So when Fletcher, this is the way he's explaining to me earlier this week. When he decides that he's going to take over, there's literally nothing you can do about it as an offensive lineman. You country strong, as Jim Washburn used to say, his first defensive line coach of 2012. He still did that a lot last season. That's the thing about Fletch. He retired on top. Usually the league decides when you're going to retire. They're going to retire you, as they say. Usually you don't get to walk away, at the top of your game. He still brought it, man. He was still at a very high level. I'd have to compare. He'll definitely go in the Eagles Hall of Fame. I believe, I was telling Mike Gill earlier this week that he should absolutely get Hall of Fame consideration. We'll have a chance to make it. I don't vote for it, but just based on talking to coaches and executives who are going up against the Eagles, ton of respect for him. Look, there were some years where you go, okay, effort could have been better, whatever the case may be. Something happened over the last three to 4 years. And as we put out on our show last summer, we were told that his leadership was clearly the guy. Like, he was the defensive leader. It wasn't, people talk about Slay. Slay's talkative, but he was not the locker room leader for the defense. It's absolutely Cox. Like, he was the guy. And you're going to miss that too. But from a pure performance standpoint, Fletcher commanded double teams against the right offensive lineman, like the guy who wasn't quite as strong or quite as athletic. He could just bully the guy. And this is what you're talking about here. Like, you're just not going to do that. Now, the guy who's going to replace him is a 3 technique, most likely. In most times with their front is going to be Carter. Carter is one of the most talented defensive linemen since Aaron Donald. I'm not going to say he's Aaron Donald, obviously, who's going to be a Hall of Famer, one of the best defensive linemen in NFL history. But this guy is another guy could take over. He would have been the second pick overall. The Panthers were taking Bryce Young. They were not taking Jalen Carter, but he would have gone to the Cardinals. I can tell you that would have happened if you know, if they could have cleared him. You know, if they felt comfortable with the off the field stuff. But hey, you know what? So the Eagles felt comfortable with it. They felt like they understood him, did a lot of work on him, and you saw at times last season he was unbelievable. And it's going to be fascinating to see what happens with him. But here's the thing: as we said recently on a show, like it's this room is so young, the defensive tackle group, like these guys are going to take over. Like they as Jordan Davis said, they don't want Fletch anymore. They can't look to him for guidance. It's Clint Hurt, of course, the D line coach, and a bunch of young guys, which is a good thing. But you don't have Fletch, and they don't have that.
The thing that we've known for 10 to 12 years now, Adam, is that when the Eagles need a defensive tackle who can get in there and play enough snaps to be a run defender on the front line, and then also in your 4-man rush, he was always a part of the 4-man rush. I mean, there was never a time, even when
taking him out,
when they went to the NASCAR look and kicked Brandon Graham inside, it was Tim Jernigan. It was came off the field. It wasn't Fletcher Cox. So you have had for the longest time a 3-down defensive tackle who can play so many snaps. And like you said, yeah, he might go through some spells here in run D or this and that where he's not dominating a game, but that was as he got older. But for the longest time, last year, he was their most consistent defensive tackle and their best
phenomenal
defensive tackle
for a while.
And now you're going to ask Jalen Carter in year 2 to go from a guy who showed really great flashes, struggled in the second half, but now even if he's playing well, to play well, not just in that role, but in an expanded role that he has never played before in college or the NFL.
Well, here's the thing. And if they learn from Fletch, the intensity he brought, really, you know, off and on over the last 3 to 4 years, there were times where he was still amazing, like top 3 or top 4 defensive tackle. And specifically Jalen Carter, because he'll be the one who's expected to rush the passer. There's such a premium for interior pass rushers. You saw what Wilkins got from the Raiders. Like you saw what Dexter Lawrence got from the Giants. Like it's hard to find guys like that, and teams will pay it because it's really hard to find. And the Eagles have that guy, Jalen Carter. That's a great thing. If he brings it, man, he's another guy that's going to be so disruptive to offensive linemen. He's got a chance to be a top 2 to 3 defensive tackle for many years to come. And again, to close this off, there's nowhere else to turn here. If one of these guys doesn't bring it, there's nowhere else to go. They don't have anybody else.
Right.
You know, it's not like they're going to go to Marlon Tuipulotu in limited snaps could help you as a backup. Gabe Hall's never played the NFL. I mean, he's a guy's got a lot of talent, but he's an undrafted free agent. Moro Jomo was a 7th-round pick. Sorry, he's not the answer. These guys have got to bring it.
Yeah, I agree. And he's got to be a part of the 4-man rush. You know, I mean, if he's not, and it's like you're worried, you got Milton Williams in there with, say, like Brandon Graham kicked inside or Sweat kicked, and then your 2 edge rushers and Huff and who would be the
Sweaty.
other? Sweaty. No, Nolan Smith.
Or Smith.
Sweat kicks inside. I just don't think you're as violent and as imposing. And I'm no disrespect to Milton. He's been fine. He's been a great story, but you need Jalen Carter to be a dominant piece of that 4-man rush. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah. So look, it's a big deal. We cannot. It's
huge.
Like I knew it was a big deal, but when you get outside perspectives of people who live the game and you know they're watching tape and they're evaluating, they're constantly updating their information. It's probably a little bit bigger deal than I expected. I mean, I think we all knew this, but when people who are smarter than you and I put it in proper perspective, I'm like, okay, I need to really talk about this, and we'll see. But again, from a talent standpoint, Carter's got it. It's just bringing the intensity, and you know, the other thing is that room is so young. We'll see who the leaders are for that group because Milt Williams is a quiet guy, but very consistent. We're going to find out going forward very quickly. It won't take long to figure that out, by the way, who the leaders are there.
So let's flip this part of the equation where we started talking about Jason Kelce and overcoming his absence. Now you have a 3rd-year player in Cam Jurgens, who's going to be a first full-time starter at center this year, first of his 3 years. And he's a guy who only did it for 2 years at Nebraska. So he's got 2 years of seasoning at the position, but not say the way. And by the way, Jason Kelce wasn't a full-time center at that position either. In fact, a lot of centers start off playing different positions and eventually get to center. That part of it, to me, not as big of a deal. The bigger part of it is new right guard next to him and new offense that now he has to learn. And oh yeah, you're replacing a guy who has done it for 12 years. There's so much that Cam Jurgens hasn't yet seen. There's so much he's going to see because defensive coordinators are going to draw a circle around him. I believe we reported when he came out, he had a lot to learn about sorting when it comes to line game stunts, blitzes, delayed blitzes, green dogs, things like that. He's got a great teacher in Jeff Stoutland, and he's a second round pick, and he's a tremendous athlete. So he's got a lot of assets at him that should help him acclimate and be a good enough player to hold this position down. But again, you have to do it. It's easy to say you should, but we've seen plenty of guys either can or can't do it.
Yeah, it's the sorting, it's getting them out of bad plays, it's helping Hurts see it pre-snap. That's a big thing, as we were told. So yeah, it's you only get experience by playing, and this is the Eagles' plan. No, it's not Seumalo, who once people thought would be his replacement. No, it's not Landon Dickerson. They didn't draft him to be Jason's replacement. I mean, he could play center because he's played it before. That was not the thinking. This is the guy that they did it. It's not a secret. Kelce was involved in this decision. Remember, he watched tape. They got him involved in the process, and superior athlete. This guy was once a tight end at Nebraska.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we'll see. We'll see if it works out, but it's a big deal. And obviously from a leadership standpoint, everybody knows he was the heart and soul of this football team. So it's losing Fletch and losing Kelce in the same offseason. It's really hard, man. This is, but look, you got Stout as one of the best line coaches, probably 20, 25 years. He's a legend. We all know that. It's not like he hasn't prepared for this. It's going to be hard for him. It's kind of, I look forward to seeing, though, in training camp, because I love watching Stout bark. I wonder how he's going to coach Cam, because Cam knows Stout because this is their third year working together, but he doesn't know him as Kelce's replacement in year one doing it.
Right.
So we'll see how it works out.
I wonder how they're going to help him, Adam. I wonder if, from a responsibility standpoint, there's no way he can just step into this position and assume all the responsibilities that Jason Kelce had as a center who had seen everything, been through everything, Hall of Famer, right? You can't ask this guy to run the offensive line and know everything and have seen every blitz. So to me, I wonder if that just means Jalen Hurts has to take on more autonomy in the offense, if Kellen Moore has to scheme a little bit differently, or the communication between Kellen Moore and the quarterback have to be a little bit more keen to take a lot of pressure off the center. But I think that's a big thing going into the year.
Communication. No, that's a big thing, as our friend Jamal Jackson used to tell us. Communication is so key, as Trey Thomas has told us. You got to, again, new right guard, you hope, is Tyler Steen. Then you got the three studs, Mailata, Dickerson, and Lane. But look, it's just going to be different. But yeah, this is kind of a wait and see. Yeah, there's no question Jurgens is the guy. But on your point, to see how it works out, you're not going to know for a while. There are going to be some bad snaps, some games where he doesn't play as well. I'd be stunned if he's an all-pro in the first year. Like, doesn't mean he can't play very well at a high level. And by the way, his guard snaps were pretty good last season. But the other thing is he's had a lot of injuries in his career. Hey, you worry about that. But yeah, we just want people to be realistic and be patient with this thing. It's a work in progress. He's relatively new to center. As you said, he played 2 years at Nebraska at center. And the traffic was the biggest thing we were told from day one with him. Sorting it was just, you just don't know till you get there. At this level, it's different from college. We'll see how it works out.
Real quick, who takes over the mantle as best center in the NFL now that Jason Kelce has retired? The two that come to mind to me would be Creed Humphrey from the Chiefs.
If he's not it, he's right up there. Keep going. That's a good one.
And then the guy from the Lions is very good when he's healthy.
Ragnall, he's terrific. He's good call. You know what's crazy about him? Somehow he's only 28. I thought he was like 35.
Wow.
Yeah, he just turned 28 in May. Yeah, he looks much older. Linderbaum is really good.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, he's really good. It was the first round of 22 for the Ravens.
Those kid would probably be the ones. Yeah.
And Lloyd Cushenberry is really good. He signed a big free agent deal with Denver.
Yeah.
He with the Titans, excuse me. He had 3 or 4 teams in on him. It's a great question. I had not thought about that. But Cam is so athletic. It's just, I want to see how he does. And by the way, this is a third year of his 4-year rookie deal. you know how it's going to be. If he plays well, they're going to approach him after the season extend. You know it's coming.
Yes.
What the Eagles do.
Of course. Absolutely. All right. So that's from a trend standpoint. We'll finish it off. We've talked about it before, but we really, it bears repeating, and I'm going to sort of sound like a broken record too, is it's obviously a critical year for Jordan Davis from three different standpoints, from weight to conditioning to then talent. And when I say talent, it's not just weight and conditioning. He's also got to be able to play the snaps and show that he can dominate a game. And honestly, at this point, I don't know if he can get into the 4-man rush yet. So basically, he's got to just dominate first and second down. And then if he needs to be on their second string pass rush line, get in there on third down and move people.
By the way, on first and second down, it's not like it's illegal for teams to throw on first and second down. So guess
Right.
what? He's got to be able to push the pocket. That he's so bleeping strong.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen this at training camp when they're allowed to get physical. You can't tell in OTAs. There's nothing. There's nothing physical. It's kind of a waste of time. But in training camp, it's not. It's real. The competition's real. They bring it. It's hot as hell. Hell, it's hot as hell now. So you're right. You're right, man. This is a pivotal year. He's another one. This is year 3 for him.
Yeah.
He's got to bring it. Again, there's nobody else. I mean, Tui Pelotu will be his backup, but that, they want Jordan playing a lot of snaps. But on your point, Cosell said this. Greg knew, like, you don't draft him to rush the passer, but you would hope when you trade up in the first round for a defensive tackle, at some point he's more than a shade or zero technique. Like at some point you want the guy to be able to actually rush the passer. And that's at some point, look, he's really strong and he's not slow. It's just,
Right.
as you mentioned, conditioning, weight's under control. They think conditioning's better. They're not going to until they get there, though. Till they truly get there. But we'll see what happens. But yeah, again, to finish these big questions here that you just don't know till you get to training camp. And again, though, that one thing I want to mention, you mentioned in passing, but I'll expand on it. It's not just the condition with the technique. When he gets stood up, hand usage, the way that Clint Hurt's going to want to do it, because they're gonna have their own way. They want things done here with Clint Hurt and Vic Fangio. Like this is the real Fangio. And one of the best D-line coaches in the league, and we're gonna learn early. We're gonna be there in training camp. I look forward to seeing how he's being taught.
Absolutely. All right, so that finished us off the trenches part of it. Listen, we've been talking about the Game Time app for quite a while and how amazing and efficient it is. It was the place to go when you wanted to get tickets all throughout the NBA playoffs, all throughout the NBA finals. I guess we have to begrudgingly wish the Celtics congratulations because they just smacked the crap out of the Dallas Mavericks in the NBA. They were clearly the better team. Yeah. You could always get tickets there through in the NBA through our friends at Game Time. And now, Adam, they've got an awesome chance for anybody to get, in the most efficient manner, tickets for their summer concert series. And listen to some of these acts that are going to be making the rounds all throughout the country. And there'll be tickets available on Game Time. I mean, something for everybody. You got Adele, Olivia Rodrigo, Bruno Mars, Morgan Wallen, Pearl Jam, Billy Joel, Lady Gaga, the Rolling Stones, Garth Brooks, Chris Stapleton, George Strait, Bruce Springsteen. All right. Los Bucas. I hope I said that right. Are you aware of Los Bucas? I'm not familiar.
Los Lobos I know because one of their sax player, Danny Berlin, went to Cheltenham High School, or at least he's from Cheltenham.
Really?
Yeah.
That's incredible. I haven't heard a Los Lobos reference in quite a while.
Yeah,
Maybe
they
since
were
the
in
movie La Bamba.
La Bamba, yeah, exactly.
Awesome. And Noah Kahan, all part of the summer concert series on the Game Time app, or you can get tickets on the Game Time app, or anything you want. I mean, obviously the Phillies are white hot. It's go see the Phillies first place as they chase that pennant in the NL East. Other concerts, comedy shows, it's all available on the Game Time app. And that includes killer last minute deals, all in prices, views from your seat, and the lowest price guarantee. Game Time just takes the guesswork out of buying your tickets. You can save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, whatever. You've got the zone deals that help you save even more when you choose the section and let Game Time choose the seats. And don't forget the lowest price guarantee, or Game Time credits you 110% of the difference, and your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. That is the Game Time ticket coverage that you get. So download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code BIRDS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code BIRDS for $20 off your first purchase. BIRDS for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Those are some pretty good concerts there. I would jump on that opportunity if I wanted to.
And I love that app. Yeah, I love
Yeah.
the app because it shows you where the seats are. It's actually really cool. And I'll be using it for the Phillies coming up here.
There you go. All right. And listen, you know what people love? People love to talk Eagles football with you on Discord. Our Patreon members do that once a week. You had great chats. You had a great chat again last night. We'll probably have another Ask IDB live stream coming up. We had one a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
And as everybody knows, you've heard us talking, we are relaunching our platform pretty soon. About 3 or 4 weeks, we'll have big announcements, added content, more bonus content, different kinds of content, different people who are in the Inside the Birds family. It's going to be an incredible relaunch, and we can't wait to make the announcement. So get in at patreon.com/InsideTheBirds. That's patreon.com/InsideTheBirds to become a part of our Patreon community. We treat you like royalty, folks. It's true.
Oh yeah, you ask a question, you get it answered. In fact, I'm going to be popping this. I have a lot of downtime until training camp. I'll be popping in there on our Discord, by the way. And you know, if people are listening, we're on there already. No, Jeff and I dropped so many free agent nuggets. It's pretty cool. We gave kind of play by play what we think is going to happen. And I think 90% of it wound up happening.
Yeah,
it's cool. We had a good time. It's great.
Great stuff. All right, back to our concerns going into 2024. We want to talk about Jalen Hurts, and I think you and I both agree that there were some regression last year, but when you look at the 1-6 record, you don't put that all on Jalen. And in fact, there were some times where he played all right in those games. It's just there was a whole lot around him going wrong. So to me, it's not about 100% makeover for the quarterback. I just think that the environment's got to be better, and they hope that they took care of that with some of their coaching staff moves. He's got to get back to eyes downfield if he's going to leave the pocket.
Yep.
Some of the little things that he was so good at 2 years ago that gradually started to erode as the year was going on last year.
All right, from tape study from the people we talked to this week, they all said the same thing. It's processing. He just did not process like he did in 22. They don't know these, people we're speaking with don't know Hurts personally, so they don't know what he's thinking. They just know what the tape tells them or shows them. And the processing has to be better. When the plays dialed up right, you got to execute. Like you see it, throw it. And sometimes maybe it's, I know that he's had this habit. Wentz had the same problem of want to make the big play. Take what's there. Like take what's there. He didn't do that last year. It really started, believe it or not, week 1 against New England. The Eagles somehow won that game. That was something like 25-20. New England came back in that game when the Eagles were up fairly big. But that was a game when the plays were there, believe it or not. I know New England's defense could be difficult, but he didn't make them. He had a very uneven season. He's still the same guy. He still has really good arm strength. We know he can move. That's not the issue. You just got to be more decisive in the pocket. When the play's there to be made, he's got to make them. And you're right, the coaching needed to be better last year. And they're running a new scheme here. Everyone we've talked to keeps telling us it's quarterback friendly. There's no reason why he can't do it. Dak Prescott put up massive numbers in 2 out of the 4 years they worked together. The 1 year we're going to do a coaching series, by the way. We're going to get deep into all of their coaches, both sides of the football. We got stuff you've never heard before. And a lot of these coaches, and I can tell you there's stuff I learned about Kellen Moore I didn't realize. It's not negative or positive. It's just his background, some of his beliefs and stuff. Mm-hmm. I'd be stunned if Hurts isn't good here. See, I'm not concerned like a lot of people are. I've seen in social media, every interview I do across the country when it comes to the Eagles, first thing is, what happened to Hurts? What happened to Hurts? I think it's more complex, as you were talking about. I agree with you.
It's much more nuanced.
Yeah, it's not just one thing. I'm not absolving him from this stuff. We just outline what the issues were on his standpoint. Taking what's there and throwing the football, not holding on to it. 2 years ago, was there a more decisive quarterback than him? No, he was phenomenal. But everybody had a hand in it. And this year, it's just, as you said, it's going to be different.
So my biggest concern about Hurts really is less about first of all, I think we both agree that with the talent around him, especially on offense, that he doesn't have to play like a top 3 quarterback for this team to be good. He's just got to be a above average quarterback. Is that, would you say that's fair?
Yeah, execute the play. Just
Yes, right.
execute
Make the
play.
plays when they're there. Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. 100%. Okay. So my concern, Adam, is like not the talent, right? But it's really about how it's all going to work with him, the new coordinator, and the head coach. Because I go back to last year, and I don't think you and I fed into this theory that the coach didn't know how to beat a blitz. Like they did poorly at it, but like remember when people were like, "Oh, there's no hot routes. There's no hot routes. There's no,"
Which is not true.
which is not true. We went into the fact that not everybody calls it a hot route. There's this term called China, which is a certain
That's
way
it.
to get rid of the ball. But we would watch tape, right? And Greg Cosell would talk to us and Jason Avant, and there would be times on say like a 3rd and 5 where he drops back, and you're really struggling to see where the response is to that blitz. That makes you wonder, like, what's the play? And I wondered by the end of last year, it's silly to think that an offensive-minded head coach like Nick Sirianni didn't have a hot route or an outlet in the offense. That's not. I know people. It's low-hanging fruit, but that's not the case. But what I did wonder was their response to certain blitzes? We're going to run these guys deep, and if there's an extra rusher, it's Jalen's got to leave the pocket and run and make a play, because that's hard to do when they're boxing you in certain ways. I just felt like they were poor to adjust to what they were seeing. But the idea that this coaching staff didn't know what a hot route was is ludicrous. Like
It's
there's
just the
no
dumbest thing
coaching
I ever
staff
heard.
that doesn't know what a hot route is.
Here's what
right?
happened.
Or,
Okay.
or an outlet for you.
That's it, the outlet. But here's the thing. So what happens is someone says something on social media,
Mhm.
and then they buy it. And I every once in a while I check to see what Eagle fans are talking about, and sometimes we actually will address it if we think it's worth addressing it, whether we think it's a good point. Hey, you know, this is out there. It's actually really good stuff.
Mhm.
If we think it's completely false, and it's all based on tape study, by the way, it's not conjecture. It's all based on people who are in the game,
Mhm.
and they'll come up with this. When I ran it by 2 people, they both said China. That's the Eagles hot route. That's their outlet.
Mhm.
And we asked John DiFilippo, who was doing a tape study for us for Patreon last year, and he pointed it out to us. He showed it to us. He goes, "This is China," and I'm laughing. He goes, "Now," he said, "let me just tell you something. We don't call." I forget the name that he had.
Mhm.
Some teams call it China. We call it this. I don't have my notes in front of me. But John goes, "This is China. What Philly calls China,
Mhm.
and other teams call China."
By the way, it's basically an in-breaking route because they're
Yeah.
blitzing you. They're just
So
breaking
you can get
in.
rid of it.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can see it, so the quarterback could see it. Yeah.
Right.
Again, be careful of the narratives are out there in social media. There's stuff out there. It's like wildfire. You see in every blog. They'll pick something up and they think it's true, and it's not. It's just bad, really bad.
Right. So my concern for Hurts out of that extension is that instead of taking Nick Sirianni's offense and saying it needs to have a better element to it to beat the blitz, what happened was, and depends on you'd have to literally shoot up everybody with True Serum, right? Did Nick Sirianni really go to Jeffrey Lurie and honestly say my offense is stale, we need to bring in a new offensive coordinator? Or did he know what happened to Doug Peterson and how he got fired? Now he had coaches forced on him, and did he just go into the meeting saying with a job preservation mindset, saying we need a new offense and a new offensive coordinator? It's not my offense anymore. And Jeffrey said, fine, you're good here. Because no coach I've ever heard, Adam, you've been covering this game a long time. I have never heard a coach come out and say that his own scheme was stale. Never. I've heard Bill Parcells say, like, after 10 years, you start to lose your voice. It's a little bit different. I've never heard a coach say his own scheme was stale. And
All right, so
wait, real quick. Like, instead of freshening up an offense that 2 years ago, Jalen Hurts was nearly an MVP candidate and the best player on the field in the Super Bowl, they took it all away and bring in Kellen Moore. I got to say that I'm just talking about what we're concerned about, right? That feels to me like a little bit like what happened when Doug had to get rid of guys, and then all of a sudden you got an Andrew Briner and a Marty Morning, guys who did not have his mind. Like he didn't run a Scangarello offense, he didn't run a Briner offense. Now that's in here.
That was forced on him.
And now you've got what is Kevin Patullo? He's the passing game coordinator. He is not a spread guy. He is more of Nick Sirianni's guy. What's his job? How is this going to work? And how will that manifest in quarterback play?
So, couple things. So, and I didn't know you were going to go there, but I could bet the house that Nick knew going into his meetings with the owner that it wasn't go because obviously they were talking during the season. We know that. It wasn't like Jeffrey waited to talk to me. They talk all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not every day or every week, but they talk frequently or regularly. So he knew, and he whatever term you want to use, read the room, knew what was going on, whatever the case may be. In fact, if you remember when Nick and Roseman talked to the media that Friday, the week after the game, remember they delayed the meeting?
Yeah.
It was that Friday. Nick seemed defeated when he talked about the season and what was going to happen. And then was that actually the meeting when he talked about that? Was that when Kellen Moore was hired? I forget.
No, he had not yet hired Kellen Moore.
Because the
He
next
said that
one,
we're going to bring in somebody with
that's
fresh
it.
ideas. And,
Right. Okay. Well, that was it. That was the one when Nick seemed defeated. And I was like, wow, he seems like just it's not my run anymore. That's when our buddy Tim McManus asked, well, what are you going to be doing?
Cue the Office Space memes.
Right. And then Nick, at future press conference, didn't seem that reserved. He seemed fired up.
Yeah, then we're going to blend some things.
Right. That's it.
Right,
you got it. That's exactly what happened. So, and that's another thing. I worry about that stuff. I really do. But we'll get more into scheme and coaching changes.
Right.
We've done a lot of research on that. But anyway, it's
I just wanted to introduce this as a concern because we just saw it just a few years ago. It's a main concern when you have coaches of different backgrounds and pedigrees trying to put it all together here.
No doubt.
The quarterback's the one that's got to sort of feel the weight of it all.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt because I feel for Hurts in this way. If you go back to high school and all the schemes he's been through, I mentioned this a couple weeks ago about Alex Smith. Alex Smith, believe it or not, he had Mike McCarthy, and early in his career, Mike McCarthy, North Turner. He had too many coordinators. It's hard. Jason Campbell talked about it. You remember Jason Campbell, former Washington quarterback? Jason went through a lot of this. It's hard, man, when you got so many different players. You just talk about Andrew Briner with Hurts, his first year, right? Doug's last year.
Yes, that was Doug's last year, right?
Scangarello, Marty back,
Marty Morningweg,
Jalen,
and of course Press Taylor.
What's that?
And Press Taylor, of course,
right? Who was Doug's guys? Yeah, you can't do that. Now, we'll see.
You and I heard stories like those were not harmonious meeting rooms.
No, because it all got forced on Doug. That's what I was trying to say earlier. It all got forced on Doug, and Doug bristled a couple things about. Where there were a couple of things that Doug got pissed off about. He didn't hide publicly with the media.
Right.
It's not good when you force stuff on coaches. Anyway.
Yeah. So that's that. Like you said, we'll get into more of the coaches' schemes, and this will be something we talk about a little bit more going on. But it was definitely should be a concern because we just saw something similar like this happen a couple of years ago. All right, moving on to the next concern. So we've talked a little bit about wide receiver depth and everything, and I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I will say this. My concern on the wide receivers isn't just depth, but extending off that would be a long-term injury to either Devontae Smith or A.J. Brown. Because not only does that put the depth to display, but Adam, you can tell me right now that Howie Roseman's going to pull some amazing trade and get, I don't know, Amari Cooper from the Browns because he's maybe not happy there. And I'm not like excited about that as he's a great receiver.
It ain't happening, by the way.
But the point is the rapport that Hurts has with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith are great. You're not trying to ruin that. And those guys are special. Like there are some good receivers that Howie could trade for. I'm not sure they're as special as those two guys. So this is a big issue here.
Now see, okay, look, we're going to expand on this. So here's the thing, and I know Nick doesn't like to call them X receiver and Z. They're interchangeable. No, they're not. Devontae Smith's not an X receiver.
Right.
He's a move receiver. He's going to play inside. He's going to play outside. They're going to keep on the move because he's tough as hell for his body type. No question about that. But he's not an X receiver. He's
right.
Your
X receiver. Keep him away from that press man as much.
Exactly. You want to keep him off. You want to keep him off the line of scrimmage. You want to keep moving him. And Devontae's a stud. You're 100% right. That's why. Now I'm not saying Johnny Wilson's going to be A.J. Brown's backup, but it could be the long-term backup. He could be, but they don't know that. He's a 6th-round pick. Not a lot to make the team right now. Odds are he's going to make it. Howie doesn't like to cut draft picks in the first year, and plus he's got a lot of ability. But the bottom line is, you're right. Not that anyone could recover if they lost A.J. Brown for a long period of time, but you need to have that. Like we could say, oh, we want about Devontae Parker, and he might have been finished and whatever. The analytic data is bad, with him over the last couple of years. But you know what? He's still signed to be AJ Brown's backup. So he retires, and I checked into this. This is a little bit, we'll add to our reporting and information. Paris Campbell can play the X receiver. Someone corrected me, work with him, but the guy I talked to said, look, he can play it if you need him to. I'd rather have him as a Z, is your move receiver.
Right.
He also could play the Y position. He could play the F position, but he's not really an X, but he's got the body type to do it. He's as you've seen him, he's a bigger guy at 6'. He's a big 6'1", but he's a better Z. And plus he's so beat up physically over the years. They got to address this position by training camp. So I just want to keep an eye on 89 Johnny Wilson. I'm very interested to see, and Joseph Ngata, who I know it doesn't really mean much, if anything, because he ran with the starters when AJ was not working, whenever they needed a break, whatever the case may be. But Ngata, this is year 2 with them. I know he doesn't get great separation, but he's a big body, and we'll see. Someone's got to step up here. And then Jacob Harris, who didn't practice during the mandatory camp, he's got a lot of athletic ability. He's also another big body. And then we'll see about John Ross. But to get back to what you were talking about with these two guys, they have to figure out what the game. I'm sure they are. They have all the information. They have to get to. They have to get to the point where they say, you know what, we're going to look at free agency. We see what's out there. You've said many times they could just wait to see the 53-man cut down. It's not the worst move in the world. You'd rather not do that. But I know people brought up Hunter Renfrow. He's only an inside receiver. Campbell could play inside. Anaya Smith could only play inside. Devontae's very good inside when he lines up there. They don't need to do it. If you sign Hunter Renfrow, you've eliminated Anaya Smith from contributing. He just wouldn't contribute. Renfro's out there. Michael Thomas, who's really doesn't run all that well anymore.
Yeah,
he's had all these ankle surgeries. He has been a factor in years, but guy was once one of the best receivers in the league. Other than that, folks, it's Julio Jones. Randall Cobb, I would assume, is going to retire. He looks like he's toast. He isn't officially retired, but
nothing exciting, really.
No, nothing. Richie James, who can run, is out there. Your guy, Laquan Treadwell. Robbie Chosen Anderson, who Eagles never wanted when he was at the top of his game, as we understand it. It's as you just said, it's not very good.
No, not very good at all. So hope those guys stay healthy. That would be a major concern if either one of them went down for a long-term injury. All right, we got one last concern we're going to go through. Before we do that, we're going to hear a word from our friends at Sky Motor Cars.
Sky Motor Cars in Westchester is a different sort of dealership. All it takes is one look at their Highline pre-owned vehicles that people over the country want and need. Owner Brett Schiller, make sure you don't spend a dime of your money before you purchase the car. Sky Motor Cars allows you to make all the decisions regarding your next vehicle. At Sky Motor Cars, you never have to spend more than necessary. Visit SkyMotorCars.com today or call 610-918-7225.
And if you hop into Sky Motor Cars out there in Westchester, PA, make sure you tell them Adam and Geoff sent you. You will get a great deal. All right, this last concern. I wonder if we're eye to eye on this. Is it depth or is it just overall talent at the position of safety, which is a big concern for the Eagles? It's true depth is an issue. I mean, they barely have enough numbers going into camp of actual safeties that they're going to experiment with some hybrids and corner safeties. But I tell you, Adam, even if you go into the season and CJ Gardner-Johnson and Reed Blankenship are your starters, I like CJ Gardner-Johnson. I think he's exceptional, a playmaking type of interior cover guy. He's not like a 4 or 5-time Pro Bowler. I mean, he's not Justin Simmons or Bates or those guys in their heyday. You love him. I get it. And Greg Cosell has sort of said he's got Ed Reed-like qualities, but he is, to me, is not even the most complete set because he's not a very good run defender and you want to use him in a certain way. So, and he's the best you got. You have a frequently injured, somewhat one-dimensional guy, and not one-dimensional meaning his best strength is his playmaking ability, who's never made a Pro Bowl or an All-Pro, and that's what you're relying on right now.
But you know why he hasn't? Because he's been hurt.
He's been hurt. That's part of it. That's part of it.
But that's the number one reason. He would have been absolutely would have been a Pro Bowler.
He would have been 2 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, he won the best saves in football 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And he overvalued himself, and he should have known with his injuries. It's not his fault that he got hurt, but he gets hurt.
Yep.
And it takes away from the overall money that you could pay him, and that's why he has the structure, which we talked about in the last show. But yeah, look, we've talked about really since Blankenship was signed as an undrafted free agent. Eventually, you'd like him to be your third safety. He'd be a great third safety. Well, this team, he's not. He's not a bad number two. I mean, he's okay. We know he's a smart guy. Not that he's not a good athlete. He just there's a foot quickness issue. This is all from tape study from everyone we've talked to about him since day one, even his college tape. I mean, look, the guy with his college production, which is phenomenal, and not being drafted, the people are telling you why it doesn't run well enough.
Right.
So there's some liability there. And then now is there? I don't see it like you. I think they're okay. Gardner Johnson, if he plays and not hurt, he's really good. Now, he's a good coverage safety. As you mentioned, great playmaking guy. He's not good in run support. Maybe he'll be better in here. And again, with this new staff, maybe this is another thing we don't know. We'll get into when we do our coaches show how these guys coach. We've talked to people who work with most of these coaches who have a better bird's eye view, so to speak. But we need to learn if there's anything going to be done differently with these guys. Now, had Sidney Brown not got hurt, they'd be in really good shape. Well, here's the problem. It's not that he will or won't be ready week one. If he's ready week one, you can't expect him to be what he was before the injury. And you know what really sucks is he was really playing well, we were told, right before he got hurt. Like the light went on, feeling great about it, and then he got hurt. It's a bad injury. ACL injuries. Look, it's not medical science has come a long way, but it doesn't guarantee you're going to be what you were before the injury. So, and their force safety, Andre Sam, they like as an undrafted free agent. McCollum's back, and Mekhi Garner can play it. And of course, Maddox can do it. He's done it in his career. He did it in OTAs. Gives him more value to keep him. Here's a question for you.
Okay.
If it came down to Tyler Hall making it versus Maddox, and let's say Tyler Hall blows it up in training camp, right? I've been thinking about this late because I heard from a really good Raiders source how this guy just felt last year that they should have. I don't know the circumstances why Hall didn't resign. Maybe the Eagles wanted him, and maybe both teams did. I have to find out if the Raiders wanted him back. I didn't think they did, but here's a question for you. Let's say Hall tears it up. He's a great training camp, and Maddox is healthy. He has a good camp. Hall's obviously younger. He hasn't had the injury that Avante's had. Are you going to just keep Maddox because of he's got safety possibility? Like, what would you?
It's really hard to see both of those guys making the team.
That's
With all
why
the
I'm
young
asking.
players that the Eagles have in the secondary, it's hard to see both of them. I think the question would be, if you're really happy with what you have at nickel, whether it's Maddox or Hall, or somebody else, but you're not thrilled with what you have at safety, do you move to Gene like after 3 weeks of camp, even though you're practicing him at outside corner, and if you like what you got in Ringo and Rogers as backup outside corners, do you then at some point say, all right, Cooper, let's go see what you got at safety, because I'm just not loving we don't need to use you at backup outside corner because we have either Isaiah Rogers or Josh Jobe or Keely Ringo, right? Why don't we take a look at we can use you at safety. Why don't we take a look at you there? I wonder if that's somewhat part of the plan. You could, it would make sense, right? He's not going to be a starting outside corner. You're going to have Slay. You're going to have Quinyon Mitchell. If it's not Mitchell, maybe somebody beats him out like Rogers or something like that. But so then what's the best usage? It would be nickel. But if you're really happy with, like you said, with Tyler Hall or Maddox, then you say, all right, why wouldn't I play this guy at safety if he can play there and give me great athleticism there? That to me is the question. And we've seen it before where 2 or 3 weeks into camp, you start to see that sort of depth chart. Who did we see a couple of years ago? We're like, oh, all of a sudden he's playing this position. Or last year it was all of a sudden Justin Evans is now your first team safety. 2 years ago it was Reed Blankenship, right? All of a sudden it's that 2 or 3 weeks in the camp when you start to see the dust starts to settle and what's going on in the wheels of the coaching staff's brains. So we'll see. I just wonder, what's the best use of them?
Here's the thing. The reason why I brought up Tyler Hall, they might be onto something with him. Every once in a while, a guy just falls through the cracks where you go, wow, this team didn't give him a chance, or he was also with Atlanta. And sometimes guys find a home with the third or fourth team. It happens in MLB.
Joselio Hansen,
right? Who was he? Joselio for the Eagles? I forget.
Oh, I thought it was a Green Bay. I think he bounced around on a couple of like practice squads
Yeah.
and then was with some teams before. Yeah.
They might like. I heard some really good information on him, and he just, he's not the biggest guy in the world. Super competitive. Maybe
Mhm.
it's not fast enough. Let's not forget he was also with the Rams, and he hung in there. And when asked Preston to service, he did pretty well for a short period of time. And I don't know. I just got a pretty good scouting report on this guy, so we'll see if it manifests itself in training camp. But that's all. I just wanted to bring that up because you never know, man. These happen with NFL teams. Like
Yep.
Maddox's guarantee is only 800 is less than $1 million, 875 of 2 million. It's not enough to keep him. He's got to perform. I know they love him. He's a great guy, been a great Eagle. He's now 28, major injury history. Can't keep guys because you like them personally. You got to keep them because they can help you and you can depend on them.
100%. All right, that is it. That wraps up this part one. It's our concerns coming out of Eagles OTAs in camp and going into training camp in the season. If that sounded negative, it's supposed to. It's our concerns. Next podcast, we're going to give you some things, five things maybe, that we are very encouraged about. That'll have everybody feeling a lot more warm and fuzzy at the end of the episode. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of Inside the Birds, the leading podcast in Eagles intel. And as always, we thank you for flying with us inside the Birds. Be sure to check out our friends at PHLSportsNation.com. They're enhancing the fans' experience with their coverage of all Philadelphia sports teams. For the fan, by the fan is their motto. So make sure you check them out at PHLSportsNation.com and on Twitter at PHLSportsNation.